everyone, and welcome to another informative capsule by Los Cabos Real Estate. I'm Samara, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Javier Madero, who is a seasoned real estate attorney and co-founder of EMLA Attorneys here in San Jose del Cabo. Thank you, Javier, for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, Samara. It's always a pleasure.
So before we dive, of course, into the legal topic, could you please share with the audience a little bit about yourself and your experience in the legal field?
Yes, absolutely. As you said yourself, I'm a co-partner of EMLA Attorneys. We are a real estate attorney firm here in Los Cabos, Baja California Sur. We've been practicing law for quite some time now, and yeah.
Fantastic. So that's why we brought you here today. So today we're discussing very common questions that our foreign clients normally ask. By now, I think they actually know that they purchase and properties here in Cabo, but they're curious to learn more about the process. So could you please explain to us what a fideicomiso is in the Mexican real estate context?
Yes, absolutely. Just to give you a little bit of context, non-Mexicans cannot buy directly through the whole Baja Peninsula because the Mexican Constitution states that non-Mexicans cannot directly own pieces of property within a certain distance of the beach and within a certain distance of the border. As I just said, there is no place in Baja where non-Mexicans can directly own pieces of property because it's such a narrow strip. However, the Mexican law does give us a couple options that will allow non-Mexicans to own pieces of property here. One of them is, as you said yourself, a fideicomiso, or which is just the Spanish word for U.S. trust or Mexican trust, sorry. That trust is it's a legal entity that is created with a Mexican bank that is holding a title, but at the end of the day, the purchaser or the buyers are the beneficiaries or the primary beneficiaries of that trust. Just like any other trust in the world, you can designate secondary beneficiaries in case there is a demise or somebody passes away within that first line. The secondary beneficiary can take title at some point, all right?
So the trust is pretty much like a contract or agreement, right? And does it have duration and what happens after that period?
Yes, Mexican trusts are good for 50 years, or Mexican real estate trusts are good for 50 years. Nothing happens if they run out of time. We have had several cases where we have an expired fideicomiso and we have to work in getting a new permit from the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, which is the entity that provides the permit for Mexican trusts to be created. So it's a very simple process to engage in case one of these fideicomisos are expires.
And since the banks and notaries are involved and this is a legal procedure, are there any associated fees or costs to establishing and maintaining a trust here in Mexico?
Yes, absolutely. In every real estate transaction, there are closing costs involved. When there is a fideicomiso or a Mexican trust involved, the closing costs are always going to be, or they're always going to oscillate somewhere in between 4 and 7% of the purchase price. The higher the purchase price, the less the percentage that you're going to be paying in closing costs. And of course, the cheaper the transaction is, the higher the closing costs, or the higher the percentage in closing costs that a buyer will be paying. That's mainly because there are some flat fees involved within these closing costs. So it doesn't matter if it's a $5 million transaction or a $100,000 transaction, you're still going to be paying the same for some of these items that are needed for a closing.
Well, that's not pretty bad, right? I mean, it's a pretty standard like cost or fee to pay.
Exactly. I mean, there are some other ones that of course depend on the purchase price, like the acquisition tax. The acquisition tax is the most expensive one because that one itself is just 2% of the purchase price. But as I said, the other ones are flat fees.
So let's say that I'm a client, I'm a US citizen and I want to purchase property here in Cabo. How long does it typically take to close on my property if I'm buying it through a trust?
So we always tell our clients that a time frame, or a regular time frame can be from 6 to 8 weeks. So they do not have false expectations regarding a very swift closing. However, we have seen several cases where we can close a property within 3 or 4 weeks. Of course, these are just exceptional cases, but a regular time frame is from 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay. And at the beginning of our interview, you mentioned that you can assign substitute beneficiaries in your trust. How can I ensure that my beneficiaries will actually receive or inherit my property?
Right. So at the end of the day, the Mexican trust, it's a trust, just like anywhere else in the world. So as you at some point said, it is a contract between you and the bank. So you can establish the clauses designating secondary beneficiaries in case of the buyers or in case of the owner's demise. So it works a little bit like a will, where you pre-establish within a clause that in case somebody passes away, there is going to be a second person that is going to be taking control of that trust. Every real estate transaction in Mexico has to be notarized and it has to be recorded within a public registry. So with that said, the secondary beneficiary clause will be within the title, which is already going to be notarized and recorded. So it's a very, very, very safe way to ensure that the secondary beneficiary gets title at some point. Perfect.
And last but not least, if I have a U.S. trust and I'm acquiring real estate here in Cabo, and I'm establishing the trust here, can I incorporate my Mexican trust into my U.S. trust?
Yes, absolutely. You have several options of ownership through these Mexican trusts, of course. If you have a U.S. corporation or a Canadian corporation or from anywhere in the world, you can use that corporation to be the primary beneficiary of the Mexican trust, or you can also designate it as secondary beneficiary. Not only corporations, but you can also appoint U.S. trusts or living trusts or even states from Canada or from else in the world, of course with certain requirements in place, but you can definitely designate these entities as primary or secondary beneficiaries.
Okay, well, I think that pretty much covers the entire topic. I don't know if you want to add anything else to what we're talking about?
No, I'm absolutely fine. If you have any questions, I'm here all the time.
Okay, well, thank you, and we truly appreciate your time.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure.
Thanks.